Aloha everybody and welcome to Kyle Wanders 1122. For those of you that did not see my last video, this channel used to be Vision Quest Astrology, but I am rebranding and branching out and going to be trying some different things on this channel. So just to preface this so you all know who the fuck you are watching right now. This video is going to be all about Scorpio rising, what it means to have that placement in your chart. To having Scorpio ruling your first house cusp, or it's called the Scorpio Ascendant, whatever way you want to label it as, this is for you. This is going to be like a follow-up video to the Scorpio rising video that I put up over 4 years ago when I started my channel, and it just to kind of go more in depth now that I know more about the placement and that I have spent more time sitting with it and being with it and talk about my own personal experiences and share them in hopes that you guys are able to relate. I talked about this 4 years ago in my first Scorpio rising video. It was true then and it is true now. Scorpio rising is intense. Scorpio is intense wherever you deal with it. You have Scorpio suns and Scorpio moons that it can be a little more subtle with them because the sun and the moon sign are not kind of right as out there, whereas the rising is the first thing that you see. I'm not going to be one of those people that say it's the mask and blah blah blah. I think that's bullshit. The rising sign is the most personal sign to you because you look at the sun sign, the sun is in that sign for an entire month. The moon sign is changing a little more personal every 2.5 days, but the rising sign changes every 2 hours, okay? So that is a lot more personal to you individually. The sun sign and the moon sign are extremely important, absolutely. But the rising sign, I feel like, is your true identity. It's like the moment that you were birthed into the world, and that's saying, hey, this is your life path. This is your trajectory here. And anyone that tries to, it's going to sound judgy, but I cannot stand when astrologers use that typical it's a mask because they read it somewhere, and it's bullshit. If you hold that opinion, that's great for you, but on this channel, no matter what rising sign we're talking about, I do not hold that belief. Anyways, moving on. So now I got my little Scorpio rising rant out of the way there. Scorpio is intense, and it's the most intense on the rising sign because the rising is right out there in the open. It's bam, smack dab in your face. It's the first house. And Scorpio doesn't always like to be in the limelight. It can be a more subtle energy. It's subtle, but it's greatly felt. There's something about them. They have the presence. They walk in a room. You kind of feel someone looking at you from across the room, and they look away real quick before you have a chance to make eye contact with them, or you do make eye contact with them, and there's just like these eyes just pop out. There's just this really intense gaze. That's Scorpio rising. An animal, when they're like hunting for their prey and they're like really tuned in and they're super focused, not the Scorpio risings are trying to hunt nobody down. Sometimes they are, given the situation if they're on the prowl, but I kind of think about that. There's this really intense focus with Scorpio rising. Whether it's something we're thinking about or someone we have our sights set on or whatever our agenda is, because I will tell you this, Scorpio rising usually does have an agenda, and that's not a bad thing. People say, oh, you got an agenda, and all of a sudden it's like thinking, oh, you're some manipulative person. No, not necessarily. You do get some that are like that, but whether it's for good or bad, Scorpio does typically have an agenda. It's very black and white. I've talked about this before. I actually don't think I know that Scorpio rising is extremely misunderstood because it's a presence and an energy that is so greatly felt by those around us, but a lot of people don't really take the time to get to know who we are. And I will say, as Scorpio risings, we typically are the type of people, we're not going to be all out there up front with everything because we're very guarded. Scorpio obviously represented by the scorpion, right? We have this hard shell around us, but inside there's this super emotional, mushy center. that is actually extremely sensitive. Because we are on the rising, we're ruled by Mars and Pluto, and Mars especially is very aggressive and kind of has this warrior-like mentality. Then Pluto is very dark and has kind of this really rough exterior. So when you mix a sign like Scorpio that's ruled by two planets like that, it's going to present as a person who is kind of rough around the edges, and like I said this word before, I'll say it again, intense, and just extremely extreme. You're dealing with an extreme individual that's very hot or cold. I know with myself and other Scorpio risings I've dealt with, like if we're in a good mood, we are in a great mood. But if we are sad and depressed, we are fucking sad and depressed. Don't fucking talk to us. If I'm upset about something or mad, I'm not like most people where I can compartmentalize it. It completely takes me over. I'm livid, and you know to stay the fuck away from me. I can't speak for everybody, but that's how I've found it with most Scorpio risings. We're just like a volcano. Even when we're not erupting and we're laying dormant, there's always lava boiling inside of us. And not to say that, oh, like we're just sitting around moody and mad and brooding all the time, but there's just always something under the surface. It's not, and I can understand why we get the kind of reactions that we do out of people. I remember when I first discovered I was a Scorpio rising, and just even before I knew about astrology, always feeling like I got these strong reactions out of people, and like maybe people didn't like me, or they didn't want to be around me. Or then on the other hand, there would be people who were so interested in me and they wouldn't leave me alone, to the point that it was kind of annoying because they were just so intrigued by my energy. So whether they were intrigued or were the kind that were completely repulsed by it, it used to make me feel kind of like this enigma. And I don't mean that to sound like, oh, I'm so special and I'm so cool. Like a lot of other Scorpio risings, we would actually prefer to just be left alone most of the time and had no attention paid to us at all. A Scorpio rising would almost rather be left alone and had no attention paid to them at all, whether good or bad. Because when we get these strong reactions out of people, good or bad, it kind of leaves us feeling like we're really different than everybody else. And at the end of the day, we are different than everybody else. And that's the point that I want to make, because we do have this emotional reservoir that's so all-consuming and encompassing and kind of has a way of ruling our life. And that doesn't mean that we're these super sad individuals all the time. We can be the happiest we can ever be, and we still kind of go through life just feeling like we are somehow on the outside of it. My advice to the other Scorpio risings dealing with that, or the people, you know, trying to better understand maybe a Scorpio rising in your life, is to just provide compassion to yourself and know that you are a bomb-ass motherfucker, or you know a bomb-ass motherfucker. Like Scorpio being half ruled by Pluto, it's the last planet in our solar system that was discovered. It's all the way out there at the very end. It's the outcast. But even though it's the outcast, it's the one that everybody is talking about and wants to know more about, whether they're intrigued by it or they're scared by it, they're interested or they're repulsed. They're talking about it and they're thinking about it. And this might sound a little bit pompous, but there's power in that. But you are special and you have something very diverse to bring to the world that is greatly needed, because every sign comes with its own energy and brings to the zodiac table something special and something unique. But with Scorpio, it is the ability to go to these depths that most people don't want to deal with in their life. Because I'm going to be very frank, all Scorpio energy, but especially the Scorpio rising, is typically being challenged and tested in ways that no other energy and sign is being tested. Scorpio rising has to come to terms with loss at a very deep level, and whether that's loss of relationships, be it family or friends or lovers and romance, whether it's death of loved ones, and the death of the self, because these experiences that we go through, whether they're early childhood experiences and family problems and traumas and divorces and death and breakups and just all the worst things you can imagine happening in our lives, we've typically been around a lot of turmoil. Scorpio rising is going to go through so many phases in their life of, you know, whether it's different styles or different places they've lived, different ways of being, different philosophies and religions they might explore, and spiritual practices. And in the time that I started this channel to now, I have probably died and been reborn more times than I can count. And that's why Scorpio is always going within and kind of like just going through this intense period with these emotions that are so fragile and volatile, that does feel similar to like a volcano exploding. And then the thing to remember is that every time the volcano explodes, new land is made. That is how our whole earth was made, was volcanoes exploding and land being created. It is through destruction and death that new life is made. I just want to say relationships are not easy for us because we love so wholly and fully and with such a depth that is probably scary to some people. But at the same time, allowing ourselves to receive that love back from another person and to fully trust them and let them into every part of our being, that's very difficult. I know it's where I've struggled, and I know it's where many other Scorpio risings have struggled as well. And I want to say that with this placement, we have to learn to allow ourselves to trust again, whether it was early childhood experiences or more recent ones, or just even if there hasn't been a lot of trauma involved in your life at all. A Scorpio rising, even without all that stuff and muckiness to work through, already is going to have a natural defensive barrier because of how our astrological makeup is placed on the rising and having that Mars and Pluto influence. It's just going to be there even without having had any kind of traumatic experience where our trust was completely shattered. You know, not every Scorpio person necessarily went through something like that. But if you have gone through those kind of things and you're a Scorpio rising, plus your predisposition already with the placement, it's going to be rough. And I want to say it is possible. If you are a Scorpio out there rising watching this, or know a Scorpio rising and you're trying to get more insight, know that it is possible. And if you're on the other side of it and you're with a Scorpio rising or have love for one of those people, be patient with them. And if you are a Scorpio rising, be patient with yourself and know that it's through time and patience and effort that those barriers and walls will come down. So I know this video has been all over the place and back. I've tried to cover so many different things, and I'm sure that there's more that will come up. But this is my Scorpio Rising 2.0 as a follow-up to my first Scorpio Rising video I made 4 years ago, like I already said. Just wanted to share new insights that I've had along the way. And I would like to start making more Scorpio Rising related videos on all kinds of different things relating to the placement. So I can like focus on certain topics more in depth. So that's something that might come up. So if y'all want to see some of those videos, leave in the comments down below what you would like to see. I like getting y'all's feedback, and I am still doing astrology readings and chart readings. I don't have a website right now, so while I'm in the middle of getting another one up, feel free to email me at kylelance@att.net, which I will link down in the description below. I'm pretty much doing all chart readings right now for $50. It doesn't matter what kind of reading it is, sorry. My set rate is just $50. So that is it for now. Thank you everybody for watching, and I will be back with more videos soon. Much love everybody, and happy transiting. Mwah.